and our very special guest is the Dean of the Pennsylvania delegation, our senior Congressman, Congressman Mike Doyle. Congressman, thank you, sir, very much for spending time with me. I appreciate it.
Sure, John. Happy to be here.
So we know you voted yes for this COVID relief bill. And I guess the question first is why?
Well, obviously, this bill is going to go a long, long way to helping us defeat the virus. This bill will provide aid to those people who are unemployed through no fault of their own due to COVID. They'll get some additional relief on top of their state unemployment. This bill will help small businesses that are struggling because of the pandemic. There's a carve out for the restaurant industry, $25 billion for grants for the smaller restaurants, these mom and pop restaurants that are some of them on the brink of closing. We've got some assistance for them in this bill. Obviously, there's a great deal of money going to the distribution for the vaccine, for the infrastructure, for the needles, the vials, everything that is involved in ramping up production for the vaccine so we can get more shots into people's arms, money for vaccinators to get more people to administer the vaccine. That's very important too. A stimulus check, which funny that when Donald Trump was the president, every Republican was for this $2,000 amount, the $1,400 on top of the $6,000. It was actually his idea, was embraced by every Republican, including the 2 Georgia Republicans that were running for election at that time. And then once Joe Biden became president, none of the Republicans are for that $1,400 anymore. But the American people, and these are people, by the way, that are making $75,000 or less. There's a phase out that goes up to $80,000. And if you're a married couple filing a joint return, $150,000 with a phase out at $160,000. I heard some Republicans express concern that people that may not need that check would get a check. I did not hear similar concerns when they had a $2 trillion tax cut, 80% of which went to the richest people in this country. And they did it, by the way, through reconciliation, just the same procedure that's taking place now. It troubles me a lot less that somebody making less than $75,000 might get a few extra bucks in their pocket than it did when 83% of Americans who didn't need the money got a massive tax cut. But it does that also. It's money for schools to help the schools reopen. Some schools need help with their ventilation systems. They need equipment, laptops, internet access, so that we can get our kids back in school. I don't know anyone that doesn't want our kids back in school, but we want to do it safely. This money helps them do that. There's monies for state and local governments whose budgets have been depleted due to COVID-related expenses. Mayor Peduto told me that due to COVID-related expenses in the city of Pittsburgh, that come July, if no help was forthcoming, that he would be forced to lay off 600 people. And we're talking about first responders too, policemen, firemen, EMTs, the people that pick up the garbage. All those jobs would be subject to layoff, and then they would go on unemployment compensation. So this helps relieve that. Every municipality, every school district, every county is going to get money from this bill. Now, I've heard this was a blue state bailout. Well, if there are red states or red counties that don't want this money, they can send it back and we'll put it back in the Treasury towards deficit reduction. But I'll tell you what, John, I have not heard from a single Republican elected official, any county commissioner, any mayor that's saying they don't want the money. So I know my colleagues in the Republican Party here in Pennsylvania don't intend to vote for the bill, but I'm sure they'll be there when the checks are being handed out to their constituents and when their county commissioners are doing projects that they get from the COVID-related money. So we'll have to see how that works.
Well, no surprise, Congressman. I've talked to a number of your Republican colleagues, and yes, they say that while they support certain provisions in the bill, like the $1,400 check, the overall bill is frankly a liberal wish list, quote unquote. And they also say that only 9% of the bill is focused on COVID relief. Could you respond to those arguments?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's not true. I mean, if they don't consider expanded unemployment benefits for people who have lost their jobs due to COVID related, that's that's one of the big ticket. If they don't consider the $1,400 stimulus checks part of COVID, that's what they're talking about. When they talk about 9%, they're talking about that part of the budget that's going directly for production and distribution and infrastructure for the vaccines and monies like that. But a lot of this bill is all due. These businesses that are going belly up because they can't get customers into their store because of COVID. So when we're giving relief to the business community through this bill, they're saying that's not COVID related, but that's not true. The other thing is, John, you can't negotiate with yourself. The House leadership under Kevin McCarthy and Senate leadership under Mitch McConnell never put a counter proposal forward for us to have a negotiation. Now, it is true that 10 Republican senators on their own went to the White House one day and offered up a package that was a third of what the president was looking at. And that just wasn't going to get the job done. But neither the House or Senate Republican leadership ever said, here is our proposal. And that way they have a proposal, we have a proposal, there's a negotiation that can take place. That never happened. They basically said, you guys just put your own package up. We're not going to offer a package. And then they just want to pick it apart as it comes to the floor. But I want to tell you something. A poll as recently as this morning shows that this bill has widespread support, over 75% in the country, and all political parties, Republicans, Democrats, and independents, support this piece of legislation. So we are looking forward to getting this bill to the president's desk and getting checks out to people, shots in people's arms, our kids back to school, and our businesses thriving again. That's what this bill will help do.
Do you think that the Democrats will pay a political price for their liberal wish list, or do you think Republicans will pay a political price for opposing a bill that provides direct aid to individuals?
Well, I think the public has already answered that question. When you have a package that 75% of the country said they support, and when that support is in Republican, Democratic, and independent voters, I think that answers the question for you as to how they view this action today. I would much rather be in the position of supporting this bill than opposing it.
And then finally, Congressman, if I can ask you, what are you hearing from the White House and your sources with respect to the distribution of these dollars, particularly the $1,400, and obviously that's $2,800 for married couples and $1,400 for kids, and I know that the dependents are now, it's a broader, expanded list. When will people see this money?
Treasury is once this bill is signed into law, which hopefully will be this week. We're gonna pass it today out of the House and send it to the president. We're being told that checks could start to go out as soon as the end of the month. So the idea is to get these checks out as soon as possible. We've extended the pandemic unemployment assistance now till September 8th. That was a program that was going to expire on March 14th. So that program, which is still up and running, won't expire on the 14th, but rather will continue till September 8th. So that's seamless. That will just continue right away, that benefit. And then the aid to the municipalities will come down directly to municipalities that have over 50,000 in population. Those that are under that money will go to the state, and the state has 30 to 60 days to get that money distributed to the municipalities. We're going to be getting a lot of information out on the details once the bill is signed by the president, because it went through some changes when it went from the House to the Senate, and we want to make sure that people have the most up-to-date language on how these programs work, when the money's coming down, how does a restaurant apply for a grant from that $25 billion pot I talked about. We'll be getting that information out to the public.
And when Republicans say that a lot of this money is not spent until 2022, are they right?
Well, the programs are ongoing. Some are ongoing, and it's true. The money will all be obligated this year. That's the little tricky terminology that gets used around this place. They're saying there's unspent money. It's money that's been obligated already, and it's in the pipeline to be spent. So, you know, and it's the same with this bill. This is a bill that provides a lot of relief to the business community. It doesn't come down in one big lump sum. You know, it comes down over time as people make applications for the grant process, and that they have to be set up. So yes, some of the money will obviously get spent in 2021, and some of it will get spent in 2022.
I guess I should ask, since you raised this, are you expecting Republicans who oppose this measure, including the members of Congress, to return their checks?
Well, you know, I said if all these red states are flush with cash and none of them are having any COVID-related expenditures that the rest of us are seeing where we live, and they want to, you know, refuse the money, you know, they can, I guess, notify the Treasury that they don't want or notify their state not to send the aid to the counties and the local. I want to see how many do that, John. I'm willing to place a bet that it'll be very few, if any, that take that course of action.
Well, Congressman Mike Doyle, always a pleasure to talk to you, sir. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks, John. Have a good day.
Our very special guest is Congressman Guy Reschenthaler from the 14th Congressional District. Congressman, always good to be with you. Thank you, sir, for talking to me.
Likewise, John. Good to be here.
So you're voting no on President Biden's COVID relief bill. Before we get into some of the specifics, just generally, why are you voting no on a bill that seems to have 75% approval in the country?
So I'm voting no because only 9% of this bill actually goes to COVID relief. John, I voted for multiple relief packages throughout the summer and the fall that were bipartisan. And I'd be open to voting for another one that was narrowly tailored to get help to people that need it. Unfortunately, so much in this bill is just a progressive giveaway.
Do you support, just to be very blunt, would you support a $1,400 check for those who make under $75,000 or couples under $150,000?
I not only support direct stimulus payments now, I was very consistent on that in the summer. In fact, Lisa Blunt Rochester of Delaware, a Democrat, we were working on a bill to get $2,000 stimulus checks to people. And John, the reason why is that people need help. They need help now. I'm not begrudging anybody help. The problem is that 91% of this bill does not get help to people that need it. It has healthcare for illegal immigrants. It has $50 million for Planned Parenthood. It has bailouts for blue states that have had budget issues for years. This is not a narrowly tailored bill to get help to people that need help.
I will say the Democrats dispute that 9% figure. They say it's a totally misleading figure because there's much aid and assistance in this bill to deal with the economic impact of COVID over the last year, particularly to municipal budgets, to school budgets, to county and state budgets, and the like. So I don't want to get into that numbers game. But go ahead, if you want to respond to that. I know that's their objection to that figure.
Yeah, easy. 2 points on that. Number one, run a bill that just has $1,400 stimulus checks and increases unemployment compensation. Because if you had a narrow bill like that, that would pass with bipartisan support. Also, if you're talking about the bailouts to blue states, the blue states, through draconian measures, crushed their revenues by the draconian measures that they took. They're getting rewarded for irresponsible behavior. In no way can you say also that the budgets that were misled and mismanaged for years are COVID related. That was because of bad management, not because of the COVID-19 crisis.
You support the extension of unemployment benefits at $300 a week?
I do. However, I've always been a fan of the direct stimulus payments because it doesn't disincentivize people who are already back to work. If we need stimulus checks, let's get them out. But I would not begrudge anybody an unemployment compensation check, of course.
Do you support the dollars that are in this bill that would provide for more vaccines and would speed up the process of vaccination?
Of course. And because that is focused on COVID-19. What I don't support is I don't support the liberal giveaways of free healthcare to illegal immigrants, the bailouts of blue state budgets, the $50 million going to Planned Parenthood.
But Congressman, isn't this kind of like the whole issue of supporting something that might be that the perfect is the enemy of the good. You're looking for the perfect bill, and this, in your view, admittedly, is not perfect, but it does have some good things in it that you would support, and yet you're opposing the entire bill. Is there a problem with that?
Look, the COVID relief packages that we passed during the summer were far from perfect, and I voted for those. The difference is those were bipartisan deals. This bill was hyper-partisan. Democrats had the opportunity to work with Republicans. They chose not to. And because of that, there's a lot of waste in this bill. For that, I'm not supporting.
Do you think Republicans will pay a price for opposing this kind of the very specific provisions that the public really likes, which is the stimulus payments and the unemployment relief and the vaccination supply increase and opening the schools with more dollars to make the schools safe? Will the Republicans pay a price for opposing the bill that includes that?
Well, you referenced schools. Remember that 95% of the spending that's going to schools in this bill it's not even applicable till 2022. It's a complete farce to say that this bill is needed to reopen schools. Additionally, there's no mechanism to require schools to reopen to get this money. That's a red herring, and it's simply a liberal talking point.
Finally, Congressman, we talk a lot about bipartisanship. Both sides talk about this, and yet it seems hard to achieve. Do you see possibilities for bipartisanship on some of the other big ticket items? And I'm thinking specifically about one that I know both R's and D's really want, and that's infrastructure. Really a big, because you got to have a big bill here to deal with infrastructure problems. Something that would avoid tolling I-79 bridges, Congressman. Would you back, and do you think there's a chance for bipartisanship here?
I've got a record of working across the aisle, getting things done. I have an incredible bipartisan record of getting bills passed, both in Congress and in the Pennsylvania State Senate. I'm always open to working with the other side. Unfortunately, it's the Democrats that have chosen to ram through a partisan bill. It's very unfortunate. We need unity, more working together, not partisanship and divide.
Congressman Guy Reschenthaler, it's always a pleasure to be with you, sir. Thank you very much for taking your time with me. I appreciate it.
Likewise, John. Take care.
Let's get this party started.
Ladies and gentlemen, this